Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the B.Invested Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birchy. This is a show unraveling the truth to the start of the 21st century, and we're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Reality for some is not as great as it is for others. I think today's episode I'm going to be talking about why people want to move back to living on farms and having control of their lives and all that sort of stuff. So it's not just a normal property episode today. I remember once, I think it was in Corona, maybe a couple of times, I took some random videos and Facebook Lives talking about food and, I think I took a video on my Facebook maybe the B.Invested Facebook page where I was talking about aquaponics and the fish. I've got like 20 fish tanks, ponds that are fish are in there, they're pooing. The fish poo, then the water goes up and gets filtered into the top tank, and then you have, basically a hydroponic sort of fruit and vegetable, which is a little ecosystem there that feeds off itself. And, people went nuts over me showing that I, have farm and live on farm and all that sort of stuff. And I haven't really spoken about it since then, but, I think it's important to be self-sufficient. And then during Corona, if anything, people didn't want to have to rely on the government, the system, and a lot of people are waking up to things past that. But I actually don't think a lot of people are waking up. So, I'm kind of on the fence about it. Yes, there's a lot of people waking up to the fact of the food that we're eating has all chemicals in it. You have a packet of chips from today. It's very different to a packet of chips 10, 15, 20 years ago. The ingredients used to be 1, 2, 3, 4 ingredients. Now the ingredients are made very, very cheap, poorly, and come with a lot of side effects, i.e. cancers and different stuff like that get caused from it. So I'm not going to go too far in there because some of you might think Birchy's off his head today. But seed oil is very bad. I won't have anything with canola oil, seed oil, any type of seed oil in it. For me, I want to know where my food's coming from, where the produce is coming from. The more, the better that I can control of that, because then it can't be tampered with. And I think a lot of people are waking up ever since Corona, ever since the government, ever since not being able to go to the shops and buy food for themselves. There's been a great interest of, hey, I should go and live off the land. And if we look at Australia, I was actually doing some research on this yesterday, just randomly, not thinking about a podcast today, but I was just randomly looking up at the suburb where I grew up in Sydney, and researching about colonies of convicts and colonies when they first came here and who owned what. If you go back through wherever you're based in the country, you'll find that there's a story about when the first settlements occurred and colonisation of where you live. Yeah, so looking at where the colonisation and where people moved to initially when Australia got colonised is quite interesting to go and research that. And when you look at it, we've colonised, but we're stuck in these cities, we're stuck in the cities and, the infrastructure. I was talking to someone earlier about this, that like, if we're based in Sydney and we look at an area, for example, Tamworth, right? Between Sydney and Tamworth, there's like 5 hours, 6 hours of driving, and you could build a ton of homes, right? You could support for, many different nations to come and just colonize here straight away today. But why don't we put all the people there and have nice houses and bigger blocks of land? Everyone could be on 1,000 square meters, living the old school Australian dream, not being caught up in, hey, I can't afford a one-bedroom unit in the city. And the reason why that we can't do that is because of the cost, right? Imagine how many roads we'd need. Imagine how many, if we look at a location, think about, okay, we need to build for this next 5 hours worth of driving along nice green luscious pastures. We can build nice houses and all be on a backyard and grow our own food. Well, one, they can't control you then. Two, the cost of the infrastructure to build all of that, you need the roads, tens of billions of dollars. You need the airports, you need the distribution routes for, trucks and ports and different things like that. So the cost of building all of that would be hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars in order to build that out. So the more people that we have, the more that we just go upwards, the more that we continue to use the same infrastructure, the roads, the rail, the sewer, the water plants, all of that keeps getting consumed in that one location. Well, when you look out of that, I think a lot of people get sold the false dream because they think, okay, yeah, Australia, I'm going to have a kangaroo in the backyard. I'm going to have a nice yard where I can, cook a barbecue. Sounds good. Barbecue, mate. Let's have a barbie, right? People are being sold this dream, but they're getting here and it's like, well, we're trapped in a city. Yeah, there's all that land out there, but we're forced and confined to the city sort of life. And I think everyone's done, or a lot of people are getting done with having to fight the traffic, and it is more appealing. And I don't like the traffic. That's my biggest pet hate in the world in 2025. Life's pretty good if that's my main complaint, right? But the traffic, the overcrowding of cities, there's a whole other world out there across the country. It's one of the largest continents in the world, but there's so much land. I think in a world where we live today, everybody should be aspiring to go and build their own little colony, right? Have their own sustainable life, right? You don't have to be relying on a food chain, right? We don't want to be relying on, hey, you can only have rations, you can only have you can only have one packet of eggs from the shop. What chemicals are put into those eggs? What are the farmers feeding the chickens that are popping those eggs out? How come the chickens are built this big and they're like the size of the chicken that they are within 6 weeks, right? There's that Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead show where they talked about Maccas and fast food and all that sort of stuff. And then also a spin-off of that where they talked about chickens, right? And the chickens, they've pumped full of chemicals so much that the chicken has to be harvested for meat purposes between like week 12 and week 13, because once it gets to a certain point of size, the legs break and the chicken loses its legs. The legs snap because it doesn't support the weight of the chicken, because the legs don't grow as quick as what the chicken's body does. It's random, right? So when you think about what you're eating, it's a really fucked up world. And I guess that's why the years go by for me, the more wilder the things that I talk about, because I'm like, I don't care. I'm not as trapped. When I was younger, I was more trapped. I was stuck in by what society impresses upon us and how we need to talk and whatnot. And I just research these things and I'm like, hang on a second, that's not right. Hey, hang on a second, how can I have a better life? And people are looking for a better life by being more trapped in the system. Keeping up with the Joneses, right? What's the Joneses doing next door? They've got a new car. We better have a new car. We need to be like them. We need to show we're better than those people. People are being encouraged from advertising, from companies, from influencers to be out there to have this thing, have that thing. The more items that we have in our life, the more entrapped into the system that we become. So the more you compare to your neighbor, to your friend, to your colleague, to whoever, the more dissatisfaction you're going to have with life, because you have to hold up that image that you need to live. If you can remove yourself from that, you can be truly free. And that's why I'm talking about this today, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we should all be living the best life we want to be living, the life on our terms, right? The slogan for B.Invested today is financial freedom faster. For a good decade, it was live life on your terms, right? And I think it's important that, to get to live life on your terms, you need to get financially free faster, right? But the importance of living life on your terms, like not being controlled by a boss, was the first thing. I removed the shackles of having to go to a job. Then I'm like, hang on a second, I don't want to have to conform because I don't want to have to do that. And then as life goes further, you start making your own path that you can't be controlled by. However, the government is there to control our lives, right? And it's there to control all of us. They don't want us to be free, sustainable, off-grid, doing the things we want, having control over it, because we can't be controlled at that point. So if you do want real freedom, yes, wealth freedom removes you from the enslavement from a job, but to take it to the next level and move out of the system, it is important to have, freedom of your movement, freedom of ability to control your own food. The less dependency, the better. Freedom of being able to medicate yourself. I'm not saying, hey, let's go and do ayahuasca or drugs or anything. I'm saying just understanding that those civilizations that have lived very happily and very freely in the world for thousands of years, Eastern cultures more so than Western cultures. Western culture wasn't really a thing before, which have treated themselves with herbs, with teas, whatnot, with natural remedies that we don't get talked about. And you talk about it, you go and Google, what does this mean? that's a false, the system traps you back in and goes, don't look there, that's really bad for you, go to the pharmacy and get a tablet that's going to treat your ailment. So, where does that freedom come from? Can you grow your own food? I actually thought about this the other day. My cleaner actually was over, and I grow food and chilies and all different stuff, and I've got eggs. I get like dozens of eggs a day. You go to the shops, you can't buy eggs. I don't know the quality you'll get, but I know the quality of what I feed my chickens, and I know what eggs I get produced, and what I'm putting into my body. But my cleaner said to me, "Oh, Nathan, we've got goji berries, right?" And they're telling me about goji berries. I'm like, "I know what goji berries are, right?" And I went and researched goji berries, right? Just randomly, hey, get me some plants of goji berries. And then it was very difficult for me to obtain goji berry trees, right? And I've got about a dozen let's get them. They're only like $15 or something. So a couple $100 worth of goji berry trees. I'll probably die, some of them or whatever. I don't know. I've never had them before. But then I was looking at goji berries, and you get them as like the little dried up, shriveled out, like sultana type things that you get from the shops. If you're not familiar with what a goji berry is, I'll get a photo of it thrown on the screen here, right? There's a goji berry. So that's what I've only ever interpreted goji berries to look like. And then I know how good they are, the medicinal aspects and all that. But then I was looking at how easy it is to grow a tree and all that sort of stuff. And they just grow. They're pretty easy to grow, apparently. And I look at what it would take to grow a strawberry, right, or whatnot. And I think I was talking to a mate about this, and I'm like, a goji berry in the wild, it actually looks like a chili, right? It looks totally different than the ones you get shriveled up in your package. I was like, why don't they ever? I've never seen a goji berry fresh in the shop. Tell us, right? Have you ever seen goji berries in the shop? I was thinking, why are they holding these things back? And I'm not saying go and buy goji berries, right? This is what the episode's about. It's about living off the land, right? But I'm like, we're led to believe certain things. And I'm like, why don't they have them in Woolworths and Coles, like blueberries and strawberries and whatnot? They are, if they're so easy, they appear to me to grow like a weed, right? Why don't we have them? Why don't we have access to these things? Why are we being suppressed from it, right? Go down the road, go down the rabbit holes and look at, okay, what items do I need to keep myself alive? What items do I need to keep of good health? What items do I have or can I add to my life that'll be better? And if you're living in a 300 square meter block with a house with no eaves, and you can hear your neighbor go to the toilet in the morning, well then, it might be cool. You've sold the convenience of a certain location or whatever. But I think real freedom is when you go and see a family with kids running around the backyard and milking the cows and, playing in the field and having good critical skills to be able to be sustainable and live a life, then you're not trapped in the system. It's freedom. So I think that's what the big part of it is. And I really actually question, this is the second part of the discussion for the day, is if everyone's waking up to the fact of, I should be aiming for freedom. Why isn't everyone doing it, right? Go find an area 2 hours out of your city, sell your house for, I don't know, $2 million, $1 million, whatever your house is worth, get yourself out of the debt from that house that you're living in, go buy a more affordable, cheaper option, right, which has all the land, and you get yourself in a more comfortable life with a community around you. Not, I just look at the world today, Teams, Skype, technology, the ability for you to operate, right? There would have been a time not that long ago, 10, 15 years ago. 15 years ago, there was no such thing as Facebook Live, streaming services, stuff like that. You couldn't have watched this. I would have had to organize a seminar, put an ad out in the newspaper, say, hey, I'm crazy, come and listen to my stories, right? And you'd have to come and sit in a room and listen to this. But now you can be listening to this in your car, while you're driving, while you're at the gym, while you're on the train, whatever. And you can stream, you can communicate with the world in ways that you never did. So do you have to be stuck in an office in a capital city? An office in a city is a thing of the past. So my question for everyone is, if your life's going to be better, why don't you just go and live where it's better? kind of funny, when you think about it like that. Why are we battling traffic? Why are we putting up with the fact of having no yard? Why are we putting up with the fact, convenience of having, a shop near you or whatever the case is. But if you're self-sufficient, you don't need a lot of these things. And ideally find communities, like it could be a coastal community, it could be, a hippie community, it could be, I say that with love, right? I say that it could be a farming community, it could be a bush community. There's different locations. We live in one of the most richest places in the world, but people are so poor, time poor, being stuck, being trapped in the matrix. It's a slavery colony. It hasn't existed. Yes, we're 220 years or whatever past, 230 years past, colonizing this place allegedly back in 1788 or whatever it was, Captain Cook, bringing in all the convicts from England or wherever. But have we really advanced ourselves? Because we're still trapped in little colonies and we're not exploring the real wealth that's out there in this country. So I think if we fast forward another 10, 15 years, we add the migration levels of what we're having, the pressure in the system, the people that are like, I'm going to move out. I think there could very well be one of the biggest opportunities could be regional Australia for people to move to, for people to invest in, and for those locations to grow. And eventually they're going to come along and put in these 15-minute satellite smart cities into there. So be careful when you're getting yourself into one of them. It's good if they put a smart city in, they're going to buy you land and you have all this infrastructure and whatever. But if you're thinking the long term of the next 50 years, think about, is that going to happen where you're moving to? So the off-grid world, like, I don't know about, yes, it's good to have access to power, water, food, resource and stuff like that. Some people want to live in a caravan and live in the bush. That's cool. That's not for me, right? Having sustainability, having all the modern comforts is fantastic, but also being able to flick that switch and be disconnected is equally important. Having access to geographical roads and transport where you can make exits from and be able to commute to other cool locations is very important. I think raising a family, you can say I've got the local play centre around. If you think about it, go to a local kids play centre. It's a cesspool of diseases for kids anyway, but you go in there, kids are having the time of their life. They're fed up on sugar, candy, poisonous, toxic food. I'll probably lay it off it a little bit there, right? But you think, is any of these things good for the kids? And you ask any of these kids, what would you rather be doing today? They've got all the bright lights, overstimulation happening to them. And the kids would be like, oh yeah, I'll go to the farm, right? You don't need all those things. You could take your kids and give them a traditional, upbringing that they could have had 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and whatnot. So if you're wanting to make that exit, right, is it an exit you're going to do today? Is it an exit you're going to plan to for the next 5 years or 10 years? What would it look like? How much will it cost? Do you want acreage? Do you want just a little place in a nicer location? Do you want to have a coastal property? I've got in my head, like, I reckon I've got 3 or 4 like principal places of residences that I, frequent to, right? One's on the beach, one's in the city, one's, way out in the bush. And I think it's important to work out, like, if I did that, would my 600 square meter house that someone wants to buy, is that the best thing, right? You bought it for 200 grand or 500 grand. Now it's worth $1 million, $2 million bucks. The road's too busy, whatever. You could sell it. You could move to the coast. You could move to the bush. You could move to acreage. You could move to a farm. When is the best time to offload it? I'm not saying to anyone to sell their house and make a whole life-changing thing, but why not consider that? Why not think about what are the potentials? What would my life look like if I wasn't stuck to having to pay this mortgage every day of the week for the next 30 years of my life? What other things do I need? From me, I'm just sharing these ideas and concepts and my beliefs, because once I was able to remove myself from needing money, I had more time. It's a good life. What does a good life look like for me? What are the important things for me in my life to have the next 50 years or whatever as a healthy, happy, fulfilled person? And I think if you're stuck in the rat race and the grind and you're just trying to survive, you're not really planning. You're just trapped in that that cycle of we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to do the next thing. The reality of it is we don't need to do anything. These are pressures that are put onto us from around us, whether it be taking out 50 grand debt to go and buy a car. Yeah, we need a vehicle, but I got a mate that just bought a $1,600 car the other day. He's worth heaps, right? He's bought a $1,600 car. Oh, the old one shit itself, right? I'll just get another shit box. Like, you don't need to go and get yourself 100 grand debt for a Beamer or whatever. So yeah, what pressures, what things can you remove from your life? How can you improve the quality of your life? What does the dream look like for you? How sustainable do you want to be? My fear in the world like we live in today is having access to clean water, having access to readily available energy, having access to, most important one, having access to clean food, right? Clean produce. I go to the supermarket and I think 99% of the stuff is out there to kill me inside the supermarket because of the toxic chemicals that are inside the food. It's not like it used to be. And you could say, well, it's got fruit and vegetables. That's got to be clean. No, they're mass produced on the farm and they're sprayed with toxic chemicals on it. You don't see the chemicals, but for it to get to you and grow that fast and not to have all the slugs and snails eating on it, they have to put sprays on it to stop that. So if it's bad for the snails and they go, hey, I don't want to come and eat this food, then how's it for you? It's not just meat and veg that you're eating at the shop. So I want to make sure I've got control over that. I can live a healthy, sustainable, happy life and, not be in harm's way. And, all of us should be seeking a better life, whether that's living in a city, whether it's living somewhere else. What are you doing to get yourself towards that better life and freedom? What's freedom look like for you? If you need help on planning your escape from the city, planning your escape from the rat race, whatever it may look like, reach out to us, 1300 367 925, admin at B.Invested.com.au. Thanks a lot for watching. If you want to have me talk about other topics similar to this, whatever the sustainability may be, happy to talk about it. Drop me a comment below. Have a great week. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated.